I'm Jim Czek. You're watching Kelowna Now. I'm here with Tania Gustafson in our regular series. And today we have a special guest from all the way from just south of Boston, I think.
Yeah.
Dr. Shawn Talbott. And we'll let Tania do the introduction of the good doctor here.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited because, so you all know that you know that I'm part of a collective that works in clinically researched, holistically based approaches. And I'm super excited that I get to, partner with Dr. Talbott in this over at the Mental Wellness Company. And so I do have a list of, before we get started, people, this is going to change your life, what he's going to tell you. I'm serious. So you're going to want to find out some more information about this afterwards because you're not going to remember it all. Trust me. So if you head over to my Instagram at Tania_Gustafson, so TANIA_Gustafson, and DM Kelowna Now. So DM it to me, DM Kelowna Now. There's going to be a QR code in the post in the show notes there so you can get there easily. And then I can get you all the information that you missed after you watch this. So,
And it's also going to be at the end of the video. We're going to put up the code.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. So watch for that code. All right. So I do have some notes on Dr. Talbott. I don't normally have notes, but I needed them because he has more letters behind his name than the alphabet, I tell you. So I'm super excited to have him on here today. Dr. Talbott, or Doc Talbott, as the world knows them on Instagram. He has a master's in science, exercise science from the University of Massachusetts, a PhD in nutritional biochemistry from Rutgers. He holds an advanced certificates in entrepreneurship and innovation from MIT. This guy's no slouch, people. Like, seriously. He's a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine and the American College of Nutrition. He's done dozens of Ironman triathlons and ultramarathons, so he lives what he's telling you. And he's a diplomat at the International Olympic committees in sports nutrition. So he's educated all the high-level athletes in a variety of sports, including the United States Olympic Training Centers. He's also an author. Hundreds of articles and more than a dozen books on nutrition and fitness, and his work has been featured in media outlets around the world. He's been on Dr. Oz, as well as he's been part of the White House's Michelle Obama's Let's Move, the campaign to fight childhood obesity. So bring him on. Let's welcome Dr. Shawn Talbott. Thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be with you. Looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah. So first of all, can you just tell everybody how you got started? Like, why gut health and why mental health? Like, what brought you there first?
Yeah, that's it. That's a good question. So, early in my career, I was what you might call a sport nutritionist, right? Working with, top level athletes and things like that. And, what we would try to get them to do is get that mental edge because, like, you think of the Olympics, right? The Olympics are coming up this summer. The people who win the gold medal aren't necessarily in any better shape than the person that wins the silver or the bronze or doesn't even qualify for the finals, right? It's not a physical health thing. It's a mental health thing. So the person on the top step of the podium had some sort of a mental edge that allowed them to keep going or not fade or, rise to the occasion, that sort of thing. So it was, doing that kind of work for a long time. And then almost a little more than 20 years ago, end of 2001, my younger brother died of a drug overdose. And he was always this kind of guy who was like a little anxious, a little tense, a little depressed. And he used drugs to sort of cope with that. And it got me to think, like, could we use these things that we're doing in the elite level athletes and sort of mainstream it, so the average person could help with their mental fitness, right? Not to win a gold medal, but to like get through the day or become the best version of themselves or something like that. So it sort of shifted me into studying mental fitness more than physical fitness and sports performance. And the whole link to gut health is that's where the new science is right now. What we're learning about the gut, specifically as a second brain, a lot of what happens in the gut is what determines what happens in the brain in our head. So they're really inextricably linked to each other, gut health and mental performance.
Right. And I don't think a lot of people are realizing that, really, So we call that the microbiome, right?
Right.
So
right.
Can you just please explain, I know you're really good at this without making it too sciencey, but just explain to people what exactly is the microbiome and why it's so important.
Yeah, so the word microbiome refers to the collection of bacteria that we have in our gut, and we've known there's bacteria there for hundreds of years, but we always thought that these bacteria were just sort of freeloaders, right? They helped us digest our food a little bit and maybe help with nutrient absorption, but that was kind of it. But just in the last decade or so, what we've realized is that those bacteria are actually, they're making the majority of our neurotransmitters. So they're making 90% of our serotonin. And people listening probably, understand serotonin as sort of like the neurotransmitter of happiness. If you don't have enough of it, you're probably going to be sad and depressed. But it also makes 70% of our dopamine that helps with motivation, makes about 50% of our GABA, which is the body's primary relaxing neurotransmitter to help us, sort of de-stress. But the microbiome also, it controls your immune system. It makes a lot of appetite hormones, so it can determine our, are we hungry or are we not. It really is, what we're learning about the microbiome is fundamentally changing how we think about mental health, how we think about the aging process, how we think about what a healthy human even is. And so a lot of my work now focuses on how can we use nutrition to change what these bacteria are doing and get the good signals, the neurotransmitters that make us happier, versus the bad signals, which tend to be like inflammatory signals that lead us to feel sad or fatigued or just feel kind of crummy all the time. So there's all kinds of ways that we can use this new science to, improve how we feel, in a regular day.
And all these high processed foods that most people are eating now, is that wreaking havoc on that gut biome?
Yeah, 100%. And I know, Jim, I know you're a fitness oriented guy, and that is absolutely one of the biggest problems, is that we're eating so many processed foods, and if we could, the sort of moral of the story is, if we could reduce our intake of processed foods, make it, most industrialized countries right now, Canada, US, Europe, etc., are eating 60, 70, 80% of our calories as processed foods. And that is starving the microbiome. The microbiome wants to see unprocessed foods or less processed foods, because what the microbiome thrives on is, first of all, fiber, specifically a kind of fiber that we would call prebiotic fiber, and also phytonutrients, things like flavonoids and polyphenols and carotenoids and things like that. And if we're not getting that because we're not eating fruits and vegetables and leafy greens and whole grains and things like that, we're literally starving our microbiome. And as a result of that, we're not producing the neurotransmitters. And as a result of that, we just feel kind of blah all the time. So yeah, food is a huge piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. And so where are people going to get the best sort of carotenoids, flavonoids, whatever? Like, if you're not eating the processed foods, what are the best ones to fuel the good bacteria in your microbiome?
Yeah, so this is going to sound like, what our grandmothers told us, right? The best thing to do is eat fewer processed foods and more whole foods. So fruits and vegetables, brightly colored fruits and vegetables. We know, in fact, I challenge my students and I challenge the coaches that I train to do something called a 30 plant challenge, which is to try to get 30 plants, 30 different kinds of greens and reds and purples and yellows and all that kind of stuff in your diet over a 7-day period. Because we know that that's associated with better microbiome balance, better gut diversity, better gut resilience, and that is linked to our mental well-being. So, we've known this forever, right? Our like I said, our grandmas told us this, and everyone listening, everyone watching right now knows they're supposed to be eating more fruits and vegetables and choosing a salad instead of a fast food hamburger and things like that. But now we know exactly why. And so, a lot of my work too is saying like, well, everybody knows they're supposed to eat a salad, and yet we're not eating a salad. And so could we take some of those nutrients from the foods, what we call phytonutrients, and could we supplement with them? Could we put them in a capsule or put them in a powder or put them in a drink mix or something? And that isn't, it's not replacing the need for those whole foods, but at least it's bridging that gap between, our processed food diet and, where we're not supposed to be, and our whole food diet where we're supposed to be. But I also realize we live in the real world. And if you can use a supplement to kind of close that gap for people, that's better than not doing it.
Yeah, I think one of the things for people to do is just avoid shopping the middle aisles of the store, because the perimeter seems to be where all the good stuff is. But you go down those aisles and they got the pretty boxes and the stuff the kids scream for.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all the packaged processed foods, and they tend to be convenient as well, right? So, like if you're going down those aisles, you're probably better off with supplements, or try not to go down those aisles and just eat a lot of whole foods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And one of the things that we've found over the years, we actually did a clinical trial on this to say, could we use some of the supplements to try to change people's behavior? If you can use the right phytonutrients, right? So there are specific strains of bacteria that we can give to people, probiotic bacteria, that will help the entire microbiome make more serotonin so you're happier, or make more dopamine so you're more motivated. If we can do things like that with the probiotics, or we can use these phytonutrients like we just talked about to lower stress hormones or lower inflammatory markers, what we end up seeing is that people almost subconsciously will start choosing a better diet, right? They'll have less of a drive towards that fast food meal, or less of a drive towards that sugary processed convenience food, and they'll be more likely to have the bandwidth to choose a salad, or to be more physically active, or to be able to relax and get a good night's sleep. And so, again, the supplement doesn't replace your need for those things, but the supplement encourages you and drives you towards making those choices that we all know we need to make. We just need a little nudge in the right direction.
Right.
And I find the more
got it.
sugar you eat, the
Yeah.
more you want to eat. Like, it seems to be an addictive substance that just drives you to eat more of it, right? Like,
Right,
and
yeah.
if it's in your home, it's tough to avoid.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah,
And I've got about you. We were saying about the probiotics. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I grab a probiotic," right? They get it at their grocery store. They do it. So speak to that, because I know that somebody will say, "Well, that works great for me." Another person will say, "I've tried it, does nothing for me. Why do you take those stupid things?" But they don't understand that there's a difference, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you can just speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's a terminology that we refer to as probiotic strain specificity, and it means that the strain of the probiotic really, really matters. So, just to give you an example, so when we name probiotics, there's a genus, a species, and a strain. So a genus would be something like Lactobacillus. The species would be something like Acidophilus or Rhamnosus. Most probiotic products on the market only tell you the genus and the species. But what matters is the next name, the third name, which is the strain. And that's usually some combination of letters and numbers, and it looks really sort of like foreign language for people. But what you have to know the strain, because if you don't know the strain, you don't know what it's going to do for you. So to give you an example, Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG is a strain designation that's really good for constipation. And if you're constipated or you have traveler's diarrhea, the opposite, that can help, sort of regulate your bowel function. There's a strain that I use in a lot of the products I formulate called Lactobacillus rhamnosus R0011 is the strain designation. It doesn't do anything for constipation, doesn't do anything for diarrhea, but it is really good at helping lower stress levels. It lowers the stress hormone cortisol, and at the same time, it raises GABA, which is the body's relaxing neurotransmitter. So with that one strain, you're getting less stress, cortisol, and more relaxation, GABA. So you just feel really sort of chill and in the zone. But that's completely different than the constipation kind of a strain with the GG. But you don't know that unless you know the strain, So,
yeah. And they don't often tell you that at all. There's no education on that, and I don't think people realize. I mean, I didn't until the last couple of years that what you were saying about the moods and everything, that the probiotics will help with that. Most people normally think probiotics are good for, like what you're saying, with the diarrhea or the constipation or the stomach upset, the digestion, that's it kind of thing. They didn't, people don't realize how many other things it's important for. So you've created a few things around all of this. So using plants and herbs and all the things. So I just want to speak to that as well, and how that works.
Yeah. So a lot of times I'll say to people, how you feel is not just in your head, right? And when I say that, I point to my head because that's where your brain is, right?
Yeah.
But that's where we sense the depression or sense your anxiety or your tension or your irritability or whatever. But the signals that your brain is receiving are actually coming from the gut. And so we can use very specific targeted nutrients. We can use some of these bacteria, these probiotic bacteria that have specific mental wellness benefits, and we call those psychobiotics. So there's specific strains that help with stress, specific strains that help with mood, specific strains that help with tension and irritability. So we can cobble those together and say, well, in fact, in one of the products that I have, I put a stress bacteria, an anxiety bacteria, and a depression bacteria all in one, because a lot of times people don't know. They'll know that they don't feel good, but they don't know, is it anxiety or is it depression or is it just plain old variety, run of the mill stress. So my idea is, well, let's put them all together in one, and that's going to balance out your whole mood. And that's what we refer to as mental wellness. But it's not just bacteria. We can do the same thing with different prebiotic fibers. We can do the same thing with different phytonutrients. And so I actually just received a patent about, 2 or 3 months ago on that idea of combining all of those. So combining psychobiotic bacteria with prebiotic fibers with phytonutrients that I refer to as phytobiotics, all of those together is sort of a multi-pronged effect to improve your overall well-being. And it all starts in the gut. And that's, the cool thing about it is that, you can do that in the gut and people can actually feel it and go, yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. And, the reason they were feeling not right is because of some of the things we just discussed: too much processed food and not enough sleep and too much stress. And, the modern world, right, damages your gut, and we need to fight back.
And you have some studies on that you've done on all your things, right? On all your products and all your projects. So what are some of the percentages of that people are feeling, the increase in their mood or their energy or, hormonal balance, all those kinds of things?
Yeah, so we see some pretty dramatic changes. We're seeing more than 50% changes in overall depression indexes and overall fatigue indexes and overall, what people would call brain fog. When we measure it in the laboratory or the clinic, we measure something called confusion. And so when that goes down, that means that your mental focus and your problem solving is going up. And so, those kinds of things we're seeing, 50% changes or 30% changes, which are in the lingo of science, they're statistically significant. And that's important for when we present to other scientists and publish the work in peer-reviewed journals. But those magnitude changes they're literally life-changing. They will completely change how you show up in a situation, how you conduct yourself throughout the day. Like, I have so many stories from people who try the products and they just go, I am a different person now. Like, they might say, I'm like I was before all this stress and all this poor nutrition took me to a place I didn't want to be. Or they'll say that I'm better than I was before because now they have all these signals going across their gut-brain axis that allow them to just, rise up to a different level of performance they didn't think was possible before. Right. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to take the science, but then apply it into a product so, everybody can get the advantages of it.
Would it be safe to say that, especially in the United States, that we're kind of in a food-related health crisis down there, and in Canada as well? But in the States, there seems to be even more access to cheaper fast foods, and like you have more fast food chains, and it's actually cheaper and stuff down there.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's I have colleagues that talk about this this unholy alliance between big food and big pharma. You have this food situation that is literally, now we know the mechanism of action here. You're eating this processed food, it's starving your microbiome. The microbiome can't make those neurotransmitters, so now you're depressed and your immune system is out of whack and you're overinflamed, and that's leading to all these chronic diseases. And then lo and behold, here's this other industry, the pharmaceutical industry, that has all these drugs that can help treat your autoimmune system problems and your depression and your lack of focus and your inability to sleep, and et cetera, et cetera. And like, I think that smacks a little bit of like conspiracy theory, but then you look at it from my perspective as a biochemical scientist and you go, well, wait a minute. That's precisely what's happening at a biochemical level. Whether there's a conspiracy or not, we need to get in there and like short circuit this signaling and take it away from this negative signaling back towards some positive signaling so we can feel good again.
Isn't that newest drug kind of a bit of a problem too? Because people can eat irresponsibly and then just take this drug and just melt away the fat. Like I'm just waiting to see what happens with that later, right? But
yeah, I know exactly, and that's like with all these obesity drugs that are coming out now. People are like,
Absolutely.
well, I'll just take the shot. I don't have to change anything else. But I think people are going to have a rude awakening, when they
the amount of toxic foods, and I used to drink and eat a lot of those foods. I used to drink 5-6 Coca-Colas a day. I mean, anybody could tell you that's probably a bad idea, but at the time it seemed like a great idea, right?
Right.
And my body actually wanted more. I was definitely
addicted.
I would say. I don't know if that's the correct term, but I was definitely needing that Coca-Cola. It took a while to break that habit for sure, right?
Yep.
And then I actually traded that habit for iced coffee, which was just as bad. So then now I'm just doing water, right? Which is a lot safer, right?
So, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, Jim's made some amazing
50 pounds later, right?
Yeah.
So
I know. I've heard your story. It's amazing, but like a story like yours tells people that it's possible, right?
Yeah.
And once you get
especially at my age,
place,
right? At my age, like to make that life-changing decision.
Absolutely.
And then like I'm in better shape than I have been in my whole life. And I even asked ChatGPT the other day you can do some really weird things with it. I uploaded a picture and asked it to guess my age, and it said 45. So I was like, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
I never thought to do that. You could do that. Hey, now we're all going to go home and upload a picture and ask it, hey, how old do you think I am, right?
There you go. So, I mean, nutrition is definitely, I think, a big part of your health, right? And,
for sure.
And in this day and age, do you want to trust the healthcare system or do you want to trust yourself? And I think, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the healthcare system, it's just that it's overloaded, right? So you definitely need to take responsibility for your health where you can.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, what about for people so you talked about the people that are, that are, the 80% that are having sort of 80% of the fast foods, and there are people that are really into the metabolic disease and all of that kind of stuff. What about the people that just feel good? Should they be taking some of these things every day as well too? Because I know, speak to that, because I've got my own little story. No, I'm just saying from my own personal, I know because, I always investigate things and try things before I bring them to my clients, right? Because I want to know what's all in there. And I mean, I talk to you about it and I read the studies and I do all the things, right? And so, but sometimes people say, well, I feel good, I'm okay. Do I need that? Do I really need that? So address that.
Yeah. It's funny. I tell you, whenever I talk about mental wellness, I talk about it with this idea of a continuum, right? So think of think of your mental wellness on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 1 being low, 10 being, amazing. The people that I used to work with, the elite level athletes, they were up at the high level. They were a 9 or a 9.5 or something like that. And, the average person might look at them and say, or, sometimes these are corporate executives, right? Corporate athletes. And they look at them and say, they've got everything nailed. They would never be interested in something like this. But the secret is that if you're a 9 and you're a high performer, you want to be a 9.1 or a 9.2 or a 9.3. So the things we're talking about completely resonate with that sort of a person. If you think of the low end of the mental wellness continuum and you're a 2 and you're just depressed or anxious or burned out and you don't even know where to turn, it makes sense for them too. Because if you can take them from a 2 and get them up to a 4 or a 5 where they're sort of like normal again or like functional again, that makes perfect sense that they would need it too. But it's the people who are in the middle, the people who are a 5 or a 6 or a 7. If you ask them, they would say, I have a little bit of stress in my life and maybe I don't get enough sleep and maybe my diet isn't perfect, but I'm fine. I'm okay. That's the person that can really benefit from this because they're the one that doesn't think that they have a problem. And those are the people that we actually recruit specifically for the clinical trials that we do. Oh. We refer to them as quote unquote moderately stressed. They're not depressed. They don't have anxiety disorders. They're just sort of like in the middle zone. And those are the ones that we see when we apply these interventions, that their depression index goes down by half and their fatigue goes down and their confusion goes down and et cetera, et cetera. And, at the end of a trial, our trials are usually 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, so pretty direct. they are different people at the end of it. And they, it's a revelation to them, because they'll come back and they'll go, I didn't even know I had brain fog until it went away. I didn't know that I was anxious and wasn't getting a good night's sleep until I got in balance. And then all of a sudden I started getting sleep like I couldn't imagine. Like, all these things change, because, the truth of it is that we're in this stressful world 24/7. We're always on social media, poor diet, all the things that we're talking about, and we become accustomed to it. And we look around and we see that other people are in the same boat. You're kind of tired and stressed during the day. You're kind of irritable and tense at night. And you look at that and you go, well, I guess this is how it is. But I want people to realize that it doesn't have to be like that. No. You could be energetic all day long and resilient when the what hits the fan, and relax and wind down when you need to do that too. And when I describe that, sometimes people kind of look at me and go, that doesn't even compute. Like, but it's available to everybody if you balance your gut brain axis.
It is, for sure. And that's where I was. I was one of those in the middle of the road people. I feel good. I have a good amount of energy all the time. Normally, I don't even drink coffee. I tell my clients that I have energy all day long. But what I noticed when so this is my gut drink. I have it every day, like you were talking about. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try that, because I need to know before I recommend anything to my clients. So I noticed after probably about 3 weeks-ish or something, I'd had a lot of stress leading up to that. When I started to try this, there was a whole lot of things happening in my family. And then all of a sudden, at probably about the 3, maybe getting into the 4-week mark, there was just one more dump of stress, kind of like one more thing on the pile, And normally I would have felt this this volcano kind of start to come up, although I would smile on the outside, but I would just feel like, oh, what the heck? What am I going to do now on the inside? How do I get through this? And I didn't. I found myself just sitting there going, all right, then I guess we're dealing with that too. And then all of a sudden it clicked and I went, oh, there's no volcano. My blood pressure didn't go up. My heart rate didn't go up. I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. I like having this calm, sort of even keel feeling, and able to focus and solve the issue without a whole lot of, right. Things, the crazy mom brain going on in my head, And so exactly. I really do enjoy that. And I notice when I have days that are super, super busy, I might need an extra one. And it just, carries me right through. So I have noticed a difference. And I was one of those middle of the road people, never thought I would have benefited from it at all. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But now I'm so much better. Right. Yeah, so better is good, right? Better is much better.
I love the way you describe that, because what you described is what we measure as resilience, or sometimes we measure something called cognitive flexibility, which is, it's not, when we talk about mental wellness, it's not about being happy all the time, right? But it's about getting your microbiome to be, I refer to it as this internal on-demand natural pharmacy that will make what you need when you need it in the right amount. So if what hits the fan, like you just described, and that one more thing gets put on your pile of stress, you're instead of having this overactive fight or flight response, right, where your stress response is just going through the roof, your body will respond appropriately, and you'll be able to sort of navigate the situation and solve the problem more effectively, and just really be more effective in all aspects of your life. And you can't get that unless your gut brain axis is that in that dynamic nature. But I mean, that's good for high performers. It's good for people who are just trying to get through the day. It's good for people who want to become the best version of themselves. It really is a cool thing to experience.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did the harder road. I did the no wheat, no sugar for 90 days. A lot of people can't do that, right?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, when he goes in, he goes all in, boy,
But it's definitely a eating right, or getting supplements or something. Like eating right, I think I would suggest that's like the best thing to do, right?
Yeah,
just eating
obviously, number one.
100% whole foods, avoiding sugar and wheat and corn, obviously, any of those grains. And it's tough. I lost 50 pounds, like I said, in 90 days doing that. And then I kept it off. It's going on probably like 5 or 6 years now, right? So
it's been a long
big
time.
lifestyle change, right? So, avoiding all those sugary drinks and stuff like, people buy so much sugar in sugary drinks. If you look at all the fast food joints, including, the Starbucks and McDonald's and all those things, I mean, they sell you a glass of sugar for $7-8, right? And they put it. It looks beautiful. Like, no, there's no doubt about it, with the whipped cream and the cinnamon sprinkles. And all that stuff.
Right.
Like, it's a work of art.
It is. It's lovely, right?
But it's definitely. And if you're doing that every day, like if you're drinking so many calories, right, and they're empty calories, and I mean, I coached a lot of female sports too. My daughter played a lot of sports, and I could tell the kids that were, they'd show up with a coached ball. They'd show up with a Slurpee and a bucket of fries. Yeah, they would just like go downhill, right, as we were playing, right? So
yeah, exactly, and especially having it in a liquid form like that. So soda and energy drinks and these coffee drinks that have 50 or 60 grams of sugar in them, your body metabolizes that really, really differently than if you had, sugar in the form of a piece of bread or something like that. It's a very different way of metabolizing that is bad for every aspect of your physiology.
Oh yeah.
I do see the knowledge like really improving for a lot of people. Like, and I can remember even 20 years ago, if you brought a box of donuts into the office, no matter what office, they would be gone instantaneously. Now, lots of times they'll sit there for a while. So people are starting to make better choices on like what they eat. And there's lots of good information like yourself out there that talks about better nutrition. And obviously it shows in your body as well. And you can tell that in people that are, in Tania and stuff like that, and people that are eating better. Yeah. Because the hospital, if you walk through the hospital, you see a lot of people are not in such great fit health, right? You know what I mean? Obviously, there's diseases that strike people, don't know how fit they are, but the percentages are a lot lower for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You definitely have a better shot. That's for sure, right? I mean, I always like to tell people your body's like your car. It's your vehicle that drives you through life. If you only had one car in your driveway, like only ever, you could have one car. How well would you take care of it?
People take care of their BMW way better than they take care of the body they drive around.
They do, 100%.
They do, 100%. Absolutely.
They're worried if they get a scratch on it or whatever, right?
I know.
And I know some people that wouldn't even let their kids or their wives wear shoes in their car. And I'm just like, but they treat their body like it's like they're just like garbage can.
Exactly. Oh, I know. It's kind of crazy. So, well, thanks for coming on today and sharing all of your wisdom with us.
My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure.
We're gonna
the more we can get people to understand about this stuff, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Absolutely.
We're going to put a QR code up for Tania here. So if you want to connect with her, and she's a sponsor of this show. This is the Fit Nutrition Show, and she's a sponsor of this show, and we're sharing some of that information. And there's the QR code covering my face,
covering both of us. It's huge. Thanks, Jason.
And thank you, Dr. Shawn Talbott, for joining us all the way from, you said south of Boston, right?
South of Boston, yeah.
South of Boston.
So you've competed in the Boston Marathon, I take it then?
I've done the Boston Marathon. Yep, it's a good race, and races all over the place. I've competed in Kelowna before. In the Ironman that was up there a few years ago.
Yeah, he's done a lot. He does those crazy ones out in the desert, where it's really hot and long and things that I've never done. That's not I love the gym. I'm not the biker out in the middle of the desert. That's
Everybody
crazy.
loves gym.
Everybody loves gym and the gym, right?
No, Jim.
Just Jim with a J and the G.
Thank you.
So yeah, find me over on Instagram, you guys. DM Kelowna now, so I know that you watched the show. And then if there's anything that the Dr. Talbott said that rang a bell that you want, we can offer you like a 10% off. So see you over there, Kelowna now. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
Yeah.